Hi friends! Welcome back to another ukulele tutorial. I've received many requests for a lesson on how to create introductions to songs. So when you play a song, you may not want to start singing immediately. You might want a nice introduction into the song. In this lesson, you'll learn 4 easy song introductions. We'll take each intro and look at how to apply it to 3 different song examples. These songs are in the key of C, G, and D. Now let's take a look at our first song intro. Here we're starting with the 1 chord, then going to the 4, and then the 5, 7th. In the key of C, this means starting with our C chord, then going to F, and then to G7. We can of course apply this to any pattern we might be playing. Whether it's strumming or finger picking. Now, in case you're not familiar with what the 1, 4, and 5 chords mean, here's a little bit of music theory for you. Here's a look at 2 octaves on a piano keyboard. We're looking at the key of C, so no sharps or flats. We have all white keys. The notes of our C major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Because we're in the key of C, C is our 1 chord. Then we have D is our 2 chord, E is our 3 chord, and so on. So taking a look at our 7 chords in the key of C major. Our first chord is C, our second chord is D minor, third chord is E minor, followed by F, G, A minor, and finally B diminished. For this first song introduction, we're starting on the 1 chord, which is our C chord. This chord consists of the notes C, E, and G. On a standard C chord, from strings 4 down to 1, the notes that we're playing are G, C, E, and C. It doesn't matter which of these notes fall on which strings, as there are many different ways to play C chords. For example, this is also a C chord starting on the 3rd fret. Here we're playing the notes C, E, G, and C. The second chord in this first progression is our 4 chord, which is an F chord. An F chord consists of the notes F, A, and C. When we play our standard F chord from strings 4 down to 1, we're playing the notes A, C, F, and A. The third and final chord in our first song introduction is the 5 chord. In the key of C, that means we're playing our G chord. Now, our standard G chord consists of the notes G, B, and D. We could use this chord in this progression. However, I prefer to use a G7 chord, or technically named a G dominant 7th chord. I prefer it because it resolves so nicely back to the 1 chord, which is C. So when we play G7, our ears are telling us to please go back to the C chord, or the 1 chord. To create a G7 chord, we take the 7th note of the G major scale, which is F sharp, and we flatten it to F. We play this F note along with our G, B, and D notes. So just by adding the F note, we go from G to G7, or G dominant 7th. As we look at our song intros in this lesson, we'll refer to these chords as well as the chords in the G major and D major scales. Our song example in the key of C is Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? Here I'm going to use an easy strumming pattern. Just a down strum on beats 1 and 3. I'll play this pattern once on C, once on F, and twice on G7 as our introduction before we move into the first line of the song. Same chord progression and moving it into the key of G will sound like this. Here in the key of G, G is our 1 chord, our 4 chord is C, and then our 5 chord is D. So in this progression we're playing G, C, and then D7. Our song example in the key of G is Groovy Kind of Love. For this introduction, I'm going to play an arpeggio on each chord. An arpeggio is simply a slow down strum played as a broken chord. I'll play one arpeggio on G, one on C, and then one on D7, leading us into the song. When I'm feeling blue, all I have to do. Now we're moving into the key of D, where D is our 1 chord, G is our 4, and A is our 5 chord. So we'll play D, G, and then A7. We'll apply this introduction to the song Summer Wind using an easy down, up, down strumming pattern. I'll play this pattern once on D, once on G, and then once on A7, moving into the first line of the song. The summer wind came blowing in from across the sea. If you're enjoying this lesson, please give this video a thumbs up and thank you so much for subscribing. If you'd like to download a PDF of the lesson materials, you can do so from my Patreon page, along with my songbook that covers all of the songs that I've shared in my tutorials. You'll find the link down below in the video description. Now we're moving into our second introduction. Let's take a close look at this chord progression in all 3 keys. This progression is 1, 2, 4, 5, with the 5 being a dominant 7th chord. So starting on the 1, in the key of C, this is our C chord. Then we go to the 2, which is D minor. Then to the 4 chord, which is F. And then to the 5 dominant 7th chord, which is G7. Next I'll play this intro leading into the first line of Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? I'll use the same pattern that we used for our first intro, playing a down strum on beats 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll play this pattern once on each chord of our intro, leading into the first line. Tonight you're mine completely. Now let's take a look at this second intro in the key of G. Here we start on our 1 chord, which is G. Then we go to the 2 chord, which is A minor. Then to the 4, which is C. And then to the 5 dominant 7th chord, which is D7. Here's how it sounds to play the second intro in the key of G, playing an easy arpeggio on each of the 4 chords leading into the first line of Groovy Kind of Love. When I'm feeling blue, all I have to do. Now looking at the key of D. D is our 1 chord. E minor is our 2 chord. Our 4 chord is G. And then our 5 dominant 7th chord is A7. Here's how it sounds to play the second intro in the key of D, leading into the first line of Summer Wind. I'm going to use the same down, up, down pattern that I used with our first intro to this song. Song introduction starts on a minor chord and sounds like this. Let's look at how to play this in the key of C, G, and D. One thing I want to mention is that in the PDF lesson materials, I'm also going to include these 4 song introductions in the key of A and in the key of F, as those are also common keys to play songs on ukulele. For this third intro, we're starting on a minor chord. So in the key of C, we're starting on A minor, which is our 6th chord. Then we're going to the 4, which is F. Then to C, which is our 1 chord. And then to G7. This is our 5 chord, playing the dominant 7th. Here's how it sounds to play this third intro leading into Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? Tonight you're mine completely. Now looking at the key of G. For this third intro, we're starting on E minor, which is our 6th chord. Then we go to C, which is the 4. Then to G, which is our 1 chord. And then to D7, which is our 5 chord dominant 7th. Now playing this third intro, leading into the first line of Groovy Kind of Love. When I'm feeling blue, all I have to do. For this third introduction in the key of D, we're starting on B minor. This is our 6th chord. Then we're going to the 4, which is G. Then to D, which is our 1. And then to A7, which is our 5 dominant 7th chord. Now here's our third intro leading into the first line. The summer wind came blowing in from across the sea. Our fourth song introduction is one of my favorites. Here we're going back and forth between the 1 chord and the 1 sus4 chord. Let's take a look at what this means and how to apply it to all 3 of our song examples. To play this fourth intro in the key of C, we're starting on our C chord, and then we're going to a C sus4 chord. To play this chord, I'm keeping my ring finger in place on the 3rd fret of the 1st string, and I'm placing down my index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. Let's take a quick look at how this beautiful sus4 chord is formed. Now, as we saw earlier, our standard C major chord consists of the notes C, E, and G. A sus4 chord is short for suspended fourth. Here we're omitting the 3rd note of the scale, which is E, and replacing it with the 4th note, which is F. Taking a look at this with our chord diagrams, a standard C chord is made up of the notes G, C, E, and C. A C sus4 chord is different by only one note. We're replacing the E with an F. So to play C sus4, we're playing the notes G, C, F, and C. The difference between E and F on the 2nd string is actually quite significant, and it's really beautiful to alternate between these two chords, going from C to C sus4. Here's how it looks to play this intro using our strumming pattern for Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, leading into the first line of the song. G, we'll start this 4th song introduction on our G chord, and then we'll go to our G sus4 chord. To play this chord, I'm keeping all 3 fingers in place, and I'm also placing down my pinky on the 3rd fret of the 1st string. Then it's easy enough to lift it back up again to go back to G, place it back down to go back to G sus4. Here's our 4th intro leading into the first line of Groovy Kind of Love. When I'm feeling blue, all I have to do. Now we've come to our final chord progression, looking at our 4th song introduction in the key of D. Here we're starting on our D chord, and then going to a D sus4 chord by placing down our pinky on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string. Here we can go back and forth between D and D sus4, placing down our pinky and lifting it up, similar to what we did on our G chord. And here's our 4th intro leading into the first line of Summer Wind. The summer wind came blowing in from across the sea. I hope you've enjoyed learning these 4 easy and beautiful song introductions, and I hope you have fun applying them to your favorite songs. Thanks for watching.